we were kids, my family had a little vacation place tucked away in a rural area outside a town called Millhaven in southern Georgia. When I say we, I mean me and my 3 brothers. And when I say vacation home, I mean a small 3-bedroom mobile home that sat along a long, quiet road surrounded by fields and trees. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was part of our childhood. Even now, I still feel a weird nostalgia whenever I picture the drive. There was always this moment on the way in when the highway disappeared behind us and the scenery turned into nothing but farmland. Long stretches of open land, scattered fences, and trees that looked like they'd been there forever. That's when we'd know we were almost there. I was the second oldest. If I had to guess, we were around 15, 13, 11, and 9. Our mobile home was a little primitive. The plumbing worked, the lights worked, and it had a window air conditioner that sounded like a dying lawnmower, but at least it kept the place cool. The TV was ancient too, the kind of screen that buzzed and took a full minute to come alive. But we didn't care. We'd bring a game console with us and hook it up just to have something to do at night. We'd been coming up there for years, long enough that the place felt like a second home. And because we knew the area so well, we had a whole list of little traditions and places we always visited. There was an elementary school nearby with a huge playground that was open after hours. We'd play tag and hide and seek while our parents sat nearby and flipped through magazines. There was a small grocery store in town where we'd beg to go just so we could mess around in the aisles and pretend we were in some kind of game. But most of all, we loved exploring the woods. Behind the mobile home were thick stretches of trees and narrow trails where the ground was soft and the air smelled like pine and damp soil. The nearest neighbors were a decent walk down the road. Not close, but not so far that our parents worried too much, especially since there was basically no traffic. That road didn't go anywhere. It was a long stretch that eventually ended at a dead end. The only cars that ever drove on it belonged to the handful of people who lived along it. This particular year was the first year our parents finally trusted us enough to let our youngest brother Eli come exploring with us while they stayed back at the mobile home. Eli was excited beyond belief. That afternoon, the 4 of us wandered farther than usual down a side road that branched off from ours. It was still broad daylight, and as we walked, we passed the same place we'd noticed for years, a questionable-looking property. There was a small house set up on top of a shallow hill overlooking the road and a red shed next to it. Beside that shed was a small cornfield. The weird thing was, our entire childhood going up there, we had never once seen anyone there. No people, no cars, no movement, nothing. But the cornfield always looked maintained, which made it even stranger. It was like something about the place still had life in it, but it was hiding that fact, and every time we passed it, I felt uneasy. The property gave off the kind of vibe you feel in your stomach before your brain catches up. Still, to 4 bored kids on a summer afternoon, all that mattered was this. It looked like the perfect place to play hide and seek. There were crops tall enough to disappear in, a shed to hide behind, trees all around. We decided right there to play hide and seek tag. My oldest brother, Derek, volunteered to be seeker first. We agreed we'd go in order from oldest to youngest, so Derek turned around and started counting while the rest of us scattered. I ran straight into the cornfield. The stalks were tall and dry, the ground beneath them covered in dead, crunchy leaves. Once I was deep enough in, I lowered myself down and sat still. I could barely see anything through the rows. Then I heard Derek's voice from somewhere near the house. Ready or not, here I come. I stayed completely still, trying to disappear. For a while it was quiet, just the breeze and distant birds. But then I heard something inside the cornfield, rustling, footsteps, heavy enough that I could hear the dry leaves crunching under them. At first, I assumed it was one of my brothers trying to sneak past me, but I didn't know which one, and I wasn't taking chances. I popped up and ran out of the cornfield into the open grass, sprinting uphill toward the red shed. I expected Derek to burst out after me, but he didn't. So I figured it wasn't him. A moment later, I heard shouting and laughter from the other side of the house. Derek was chasing my third brother, Miles, down the hill. They were screaming and laughing like maniacs. Derek caught him, tagged him, and Miles yelled that he was out. I stayed hidden behind the shed, waiting. That's when I noticed Eli. He was leaning casually against the back wall of the house, looking right at me with a grin. I lifted a finger to my lips, signaling him to stay quiet. Eli mirrored the gesture. And then a thought hit me like ice water. If Eli was here, and Derek was chasing Miles, then who had been walking in the cornfield with me? Before I could even say anything, Derek rounded the house and immediately tagged Eli like it was nothing. Then Derek looked right in my direction. There was no cover. I was in a direct line of sight. I took off running downhill. Running downhill gave me a boost, but Derek got the same boost. He was taller, stronger, and faster. He caught me easily and tagged me. A few minutes later, the four of us met at the bottom of the hill near the road. I was supposed to be seeker next, but instead I asked the question I couldn't shake. Did any of you go in the cornfield? They all said no. All three of them. And the second they said it, my skin crawled. I told them I heard someone walking inside the cornfield while I was hiding, and that it might have been the owner of the property or someone living there. We didn't argue about it. We just left. We walked fast back to the mobile home where our parents were watching a movie in the living room, like nothing existed beyond the glow of the television. That night, we went out for dinner at a little local pizza place we always loved. And while we ate, we brought up the creepy property. My dad casually said something like, "I don't think anyone lives there." That was all. No big concern, no big reaction, just a shrug. When we got back, it was fully dark, and of course, we wanted to play flashlight tag. My mom refused to let Eli come with us, which made him furious. But it was late, and I think she just didn't want the youngest wandering around in the dark. Still, she let the three of us older ones go, probably only because Derek was the oldest and she trusted him to keep an eye on us. So the three of us grabbed flashlights and headed back down the road. When we reached the property, the darkness felt heavier than I expected. It wasn't pitch black, but it was close. The kind of night where the sky doesn't help you. The kind of dark that makes normal shapes look wrong. They wanted me to seek this time, so I turned around and counted to 60. Then I shouted, "I'm coming!" I kept my flashlight off as long as I could, using the darkness like cover. I could barely see enough to navigate. I ran up the hill toward the house. Still no lights. I checked the walls of the house, the side of the shed, and the trees. Nothing. No movement, no whispering, no giggling. I turned my flashlight on and scanned the tree line. Nothing. I turned it back off. Then I thought about the cornfield. It was the obvious hiding spot, and it was small enough to search quickly. I walked down the hill toward it and pushed myself inside. The stalk scratched at my shoulders. The ground was loud under my shoes, dry leaves breaking and snapping. And now that it was night, I realized how terrifying this place really was. It was hard not to make noise, but I tried. I kept the flashlight off. I moved slow. Then I heard footsteps inside the cornfield, not far from me. That should have made me excited, like I'd found one of them, but something about it felt wrong. The footsteps weren't playful, they weren't frantic, they were steady, deliberate. I focused on the sound, followed it, and waited until it felt like whoever it was had gotten close. Then I snapped my flashlight on and shouted, "Got you!" The beam lit up the back of someone running away. I saw a person moving through the stalks fast. I couldn't see their face, but it wasn't one of my brothers. It was too big. The shoulders were too wide. I yelled, "Who is that? You're out!" And then I heard laughter. Not kid laughter, not my brother's, not even close. It was low, distorted, and sick. It sounded like a grown man trying to mock the sound of fun. I froze, my body locked up, and the only thing I could move was my hand as the flashlight beam shook around, trying to find him again. Then I heard a man's voice, soft and close, almost like he was trying not to scare me. "Can I play with you guys?" Then I saw his face. It was partially blocked by a few stalks still between us, but I saw enough. His face looked wrong, deformed, like it didn't sit correctly. I couldn't tell if it was a mask or if he was just like that. Either way, I didn't care. I didn't want to find out. I ran. I burst out of the cornfield, screaming my brother's names. "Run! Game over! Run!" I heard them both yell back from the same spot, meaning they had hidden together. They came sprinting down the hill with their flashlights on. The second they saw my face, they didn't ask questions. They ran. I turned mine on and yelled for them to keep going. We ran all the way down the road back toward our mobile home. We didn't stop until we were back on our property and practically choking for air. When I finally caught my breath, I told them what happened. That there was a grown man hiding in the cornfield, that he laughed at me, that he asked to play, that his face didn't look normal. I still remember the expressions on my brothers' faces when they realized I wasn't joking. When we told our parents, my dad looked confused, like he didn't know how to react. My mom was much simpler. She said we were never leaving the property after dark again, and honestly, I didn't want to anyway. I barely slept that night. All I could think about was the idea of that man standing outside in the darkness, staring into one of the windows. I know I freaked everybody out with my description, but I had no reason to lie, and my family knew that. We never went back to that house up the road again. Thank God it wasn't close to our place. My parents sold our vacation property just a few years after that. But even now, I still think about that cornfield. And I still wonder how long that man was there before we ever noticed him.